Preview another season opener right now. How about the Arizona Cardinals traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions with Matthew Stafford? Anything anybody's looking for? What is that face?
I don't want to go first on this.
Why? What is that?
Because mine's ridiculous.
I like when you make that face. Nate, then, former Lion, you start.
Well, listen, we know Matt Stafford just got that huge deal, so we're looking forward to him lighting up the skies. But as much as I love Matt Stafford and my wide receivers, I don't care how well you can throw the ball if you can't run the ball. And I'm looking forward to these running backs kind of getting exactly where they need to go to make this team more well-rounded. You look at Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick. These guys are talented. They can catch out the backfield. Amir Abdullah had a crazy college career, and then he came in and dealt with some injuries. So Stafford is going to do exactly what we're seeing right here. He will pass the ball, but the question is, will these running backs that you see catching the ball be as productive as we need them to be? So I'm going to be paying attention to the running game. They're the only team in the last few years that haven't had a 100-yard rusher.
Since 2013.
That's a crazy stat.
Reggie Bush was the last 100-yard rusher?
And I was there. That's how long ago it was.
So cool.
So we need to get these guys to control the clock. And remember, I talked about the NFC North and who's going to win it. I give Aaron Rodgers credit because they've been dominating this division for a long time. But I honestly believe if a team can run the ball and be the best running team in the NFC North, they will have the best chance at winning this division.
These were the backs last year, though, and they didn't do it. So why didn't they bring anyone else in?
But they were banged up, and they believed in the fact that these guys went. This is true. This is true. But they saw something this offseason and said, you know what? We're going to stick with our guys one more season. And if we can stick with them, we can use this duo as one of the best in the game. Listen, when you're looking at these highlights,
played one game last year.
You see flashes of some really good footwork, explosion in the hole, and catching out the backfield.
They have to believe in him because there were so many running backs waiting out there, like veterans and free agency just lingering like purgatory on the market, and they didn't pick him up. And you're talking about 1,000 yards. Last year, they didn't even have a rusher that hit 500 yards.
Yeah.
They didn't even have that.
God.
Yeah.
And
they
it's
had
on them.
Theo Riddick, who hit, what, less than 400?
It's on the running game.
They still made the playoffs.
It's on the running game.
I'm going to go with a guy on defense, an underrated acquisition that everyone's talking about, the offensive players, and they got all this. First-round pick, Jarrad Davis, could be a revelation. And when I say he's underrated, it's not underrated because he's a first-round pick. It's because we're talking about Reuben Foster. We're talking about Myles Garrett. We're talking about Derek Barnett. We haven't talked about Jarrad Davis, who they took 21st overall. And his defensive coordinator was Randy Shannon, who used to be the head coach at Miami. And Randy Shannon said he's competitive like John Vilma. He's athletic like John Beeson. And his football knowledge is comparable to Ray Lewis.
Okay.
Pretty good triple
threat.
That's the trilogy.
Jim Caldwell, the new head coach, has been with them for a couple of weeks, says in psychology, they're talking about nature versus nurture and whether or not individuals are kind of born with innate leadership abilities. I think Jarrad was born with them, and he displays them on a daily basis. I'll give you a quick example. They played the Patriots in a preseason game, a meaningless preseason game. They were down 24-0 early. And afterwards, Amir Abdullah, not to throw shade at Amir Abdullah, he said, that's the GOAT. Like, he played like the GOAT, Tom Brady. Jarrad Davis, I've heard from that, was inconsolable. Like, he could not believe that they lost the game. Like outraged. Shaken. Like, how do we lose this game? And he says, okay, how do we use that now? I think they just got themselves a leader, and not just a leader on defense, like a locker room leader, a 10-year starter, the type of guy that could be Chris Spielman or what DeAndre Levy was his first couple of years there in Detroit. An anchor to that defense that they've been missing for so long. So we know about Darius Slay. We know about some of these other players, Ziggy Ansah. Neither one of those guys necessarily is that vocal. This is your Ray Lewis in the locker room, and I think Detroit's been missing that. And I think week 1 against the Cardinals, he's going to show out.
Wow.
I love that.
That's awesome.
For the Arizona side, John Brown, somebody I'm looking at from a fantasy perspective. He was drafted really late, so he's going to end up being a value. He was drafted as a wide receiver 4. He's healthy. That's the only knock. Last year, he battled through some injuries. He was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. He had a cyst on his spine removed in the offseason, and then Bruce Arians came out and said, I'm seeing him run routes better than I've seen him run routes ever before. This is a guy who's had a 1,000-yard season and a ton of touchdowns, and if he's healthy, you've got to play him, especially in this matchup this week. He could end up being a wide receiver 2. If you can slot him in your flex spot or as a wide receiver 3, John Brown is a must-start against a Lions secondary that I don't know if made enough improvements. They were bottom 10 last year, and I'm
week 1 must start.
Yeah, week 1 must start.
I feel like John Brown is going to be a monster this year.
Look what he did in the preseason. In the preseason, we saw what we know that he can do. He's met his talent. If he's on the field, play him.